Can you find the crushing sequence that turns a desperate defense into a tactical masterpiece? With the black queen attacking the f2 square, white looks like they are in serious trouble, but a stunning combination is about to explode on the board. It begins with a spectacular queen sacrifice. White captures the bishop, and the black king is suddenly totally exposed. The king cannot capture the queen because the white rook on the edge of the board is standing guard, leaving black with only one way to respond. The knight jumps from e8 to capture the queen, but it has been deflected away from defending the back rank. Now the rook swings to the corner with a powerful check, dragging the king further into the line of fire. The king is forced to step forward to f7, and that is when the trap finally closes. White captures the rook with another check. This is a lethal skewer on the f-file. The black king cannot capture the rook because the white knight on g6 is protecting it, so the king has to move elsewhere. Capturing the knight is the most resilient try, but it leaves the black queen completely unprotected. The white rook finally snatches the queen. White emerges from the chaos with a decisive material advantage and a completely winning endgame. From a brilliant sacrifice to a long-range skewer, that is how you finish a game in style. Look at this kingside, it is about to explode. Black starts the demolition with a crushing bishop sacrifice on h2. This attraction tactic drags the white king into the open. After the king captures, the queen swings into the attack with a powerful check. White is forced to retreat to the back rank, hoping for safety, but there is no hiding. Black now unleashes a second brilliant sacrifice as the knight leaps into f2. This move is a total hammer blow, threatening the queen and clearing the path for the final assault. White is forced to capture the knight with the bishop, but that allows the queen to recapture with check. The white defense is in total ruins. With the king exposed and the black pieces perfectly coordinated, the attack is absolutely relentless, and the position is completely winning. White just promoted to a queen and is one square away from a brutal win, but they have walked right into a legendary king hunt. With the new queen threatening a finishing blow on the h8 square, black has to act fast. The fireworks start with the bishop leaping to g2, checking the king and forcing him out of his hole. The king steps up, but now black pulls the bishop back to f3. This is a massive discovered check from the rook on c2. White's king is forced into the open, stepping up to g3. But the pressure doesn't stop. The rook swings over to g2, dragging the king even deeper into the line of fire. The king tries to find safety on h4, only for the other bishop to strike. Bishop to f2 checks the king, pushing him to the very edge of the board. The king is cornered on the h5 square, and now comes the move of the game, a spectacular sacrifice. Bishop takes g4 check. White is forced to capture with the pawn, but this blows the king's cover completely. The h-file is now wide open. The rook slides to h2 for a check, and after the knight desperately blocks on h4, black finishes the masterpiece with rook takes h4, checkmate, from a losing position to a tactical demolition in 7 moves. White thinks they've trapped the knight, but they've actually just signed their own death warrant. By pushing the pawn to g4, white attacks the knight on h5, but completely ignores their own king's safety. Black strikes back instantly. The rook drops to the back rank with check. White has to be extremely careful here. If the king tries to tuck itself away in the corner, then it's an immediate lights out. The second rook swings over to f2. And that is a brutal checkmate. The king is suffocated by its own pieces and the coordination of the two black rooks. So, white is forced to step the king out into the open. But this is exactly where the trap snaps shut. Instead of saving the knight, it jumps forward into f4 with check. The knight hits the king and the completely unprotected rook on e6. This is a devastating fork that wins the game on the spot. White has to move the king to safety. And now black simply cleans up the material. Black has snatched a full rook and neutralized all of white's pressure, from a seemingly trapped knight to a crushing winning advantage in just 3 moves.
Black is 1 square away from winning the game with a checkmate on g2, but white strikes first with an absolute lightning bolt. The pawn leaps forward to f7, and this is a devastating discovered attack. While the king is in check, White's rook on the f-file is now laser beaming the black rook on the back rank. If the king ducks into the corner at h8, the defense collapses immediately. White sacrifices the bishop on g7, drawing the king out into the open. After the king takes, the white queen delivers the final blow on g5. Game over. Black's most resilient defense is to capture the pawn with the rook on f7, but this is exactly what white wants. It's time for a brilliant deflection. The queen sacrifices herself, capturing the rook on d8. This bold move forces the black rook to leave its post to defend the king. Once the rook moves back to f8 to block the check, the back rank is completely vulnerable. The white rook captures on f8, delivering a clinical back rank checkmate. That is pure tactical fireworks.
Look at this board. Black's king is trapped in the corner, and white is about to deliver a crushing blow. This intense blitz encounter from 2025 shows us exactly why having two rooks on the 7th rank is a nightmare for the defender. The winning idea starts with the quiet but deadly rook from f1 sliding up to f7. By doubling up, white creates an unstoppable threat of checkmate on the h7 square. If black tries to defend by throwing the rook over to g7, white isn't bothered at all and simply captures. The rook takes on g7, and black is still completely paralyzed. But what happens if black tries to guard the king by bringing the knight back to f8? The knight guards the mate, but white has a spectacular resource. The bishop leaps to e5 with a sharp check. Black is forced to block with the rook, and now the coordination of the rooks is just too much. The rook captures on g7. Even if black tries to fight back with a knight jump to h7 offering a check, white doesn't flinch. The rook takes the knight with check. The king is forced to step aside to g8, and the other rook delivers a cold-blooded checkmate on the back rank. That is how you dominate a position with pure piece coordination.